Modern college students have access to virtually unlimited educational resources. They have multi-million-dollar university libraries, expensive private tutors, advanced AI assistants, and the absolute entirety of human knowledge sitting right there in their pockets. Prisoners, on the other hand, have absolutely nothing. There is no high-speed internet connection. There are no search engines to consult. There are no smartphones to rely on. They have just a cold, concrete box, the constant, deafening noise of the cell block, and maybe a single worn-out book if they are incredibly lucky. Yet, against all conventional logic and expectation, guess who actually learns faster? Think back to the year 1946, when a young man first entered a state prison facility. He was known as a street hustler, a convicted criminal, and he was effectively illiterate. He couldn't even read a simple daily newspaper without severely struggling through the basic words. Exactly 7 years later, he walked out of the gates of that prison as one of the most articulate, devastatingly intelligent, and culturally influential voices of the entire 20th century. How exactly did he do it? He certainly didn't have access to a premium masterclass or modern productivity apps. He didn't have perfectly organized digital Notion templates, or a pair of expensive, noise-canceling headphones to block out the world. Instead, he simply got his hands on a standard English dictionary. He sat quietly under a dim hallway light that slowly bled into his dark cell, and he meticulously hand-copied the entire book. He copied every single word. He copied every single definition. He copied every single punctuation mark. Page by agonizing page, night after long night, until he had completely and permanently internalized the language. The truth is, prisoners know something that your highly educated university professors simply don't. In fact, the absolute brutal deprivation of a restrictive prison environment physically forces the human brain to tap into three very specific, deeply ingrained biological principles. These happen to be the exact same underlying principles that elite top performers use to fully master complex technical certifications, to learn how to code in record-breaking time, and to successfully bypass everyone else around them in the competitive real world. I am about to show you exactly what these three fundamental principles are, and I promise you, by the end of this video, you will never look at studying or learning the exact same way ever again. First, let's talk about the concept of freedom. Right now, you have the ultimate freedom to go anywhere, consume absolutely anything, and click on whatever shiny object you want. And precisely because of that unlimited freedom, your mind goes absolutely nowhere. Your phone buzzes in your pocket, and you immediately check it. You always have a streaming tab left open in the background. Short-form videos are constantly running on your screen. The professor at the front of the room is talking, but you are not actually listening to a single word they are saying. You are currently existing in a constant, mentally exhausting state of continuous partial attention. Now, I want you to imagine the complete and total opposite of that scenario. No internet connection, no mobile phone, absolutely no digital escape from the harsh present moment. That is exactly what prison is. It represents a brutal, forced elimination of all your daily choices. Scientific experts call the only real antidote to this modern disease deep work. It is defined as the rare ability to focus entirely without distraction on a highly cognitively demanding task. But the tragic reality is that modern students are almost biologically incapable of ever achieving this flow state. A highly famous research study conducted by a major university recently found something truly terrifying. They discovered that after just a single minor interruption, like simply glancing down at a quick text message, it takes your brain an average of 23 full minutes to completely refocus its attention back onto the original task. The average working professional gets interrupted about every 3 minutes. And the average college student? They actively interrupt themselves every few seconds. If you do the math on that, it means you never actually reach a state of true, uninterrupted deep focus. Instead, you are constantly dealing with a lingering condition that neuroscientists formally call attention residue. Whenever you quickly switch your gaze from a rapidly moving online video back down to your textbook, a significant piece of your brain's processing power is still left behind, unconsciously processing that video. Because of this, your cognitive bandwidth is completely fractured and broken. You are literally trying to study with only half of a functioning brain. But the issue actually goes much deeper than just simple daily distraction. It is a very serious underlying chemical problem. Your human brain is currently chronically addicted to cheap artificial hits of dopamine. Dopamine isn't just a chemical about feeling pleasure. It is the core biological driver that pushes you to seek out a reward. You crave quick, immediate hits. You want easy, completely unearned rewards generated simply from scrolling and swiping on a glass screen. When your daily dopamine baseline is pushed sky high from constantly scrolling through social media feeds, sitting down and reading a dense, complex book begins to feel physically painful. It feels incredibly boring. As a result, your overstimulated brain violently rejects the effort. Prisoners, however, simply don't get that luxury or that option. They don't have a glowing digital screen to easily escape into. Completely stripped of all high dopamine stimuli, their highly restrictive, barren environment actively forces a complete biological hard reset of their nervous system. Over time, their baseline dopamine level drops so incredibly low that, quite suddenly, the act of reading a dry historical book or a highly complex legal text causes a massive, highly rewarding spike of dopamine in their minds. Their brains literally begin to rewire themselves from the inside out. Previously destroyed attention spans fully and completely restore. Dense, difficult, and dry texts suddenly become deeply engaging to them, simply because it is the only form of mental stimulation available in the cell. These individuals aren't naturally smarter than you are. They aren't naturally more gifted or more talented. Their brains simply work exactly the way that human brains were originally designed and evolved to work. So now you understand the true power of focus. But here is the harsh, deeply uncomfortable truth about human nature. Focus alone always fades fast. If your journey is just about maintaining focus, you will inevitably quit by day 3. And that is exactly where the second, much more powerful psychological advantage finally comes into play. Think about it. Why do you personally study? You probably study to achieve a specific letter grade. Maybe you study just enough to pass an upcoming test, or maybe you do it to eventually get a comfortable, well-paying corporate job. But they study to actually survive. For them, it is a literal matter of life or death. Most incarcerated prisoners who eventually become dedicated jailhouse scholars aren't simply chasing a fancy paper diploma to frame and hang on a wall. They are actively fighting for their actual lives, for their lost freedom, and for their entire future. They are sitting there learning complex constitutional law because their assigned, heavily overworked public defender completely and utterly failed them. The terrifying, cold realization slowly hits them in the pitch dark of their concrete cell. If I don't somehow learn to understand this complex legal jargon, I will literally die right here inside this cage. That specific feeling isn't just basic motivation. Normal motivation is what briefly gets you to go to the gym on January 1st. Regular motivation always fades away. What they experience is raw, unfiltered, biological survival instinct. Let me tell you the truly incredible true story of a former federal inmate. Back when he was in his early 20s, he made a terrible, life-altering mistake. Because of it, he was harshly sentenced to serve 12 long years inside a maximum security federal prison. Prior to this, he had absolutely zero legal background or training. But facing more than a full decade locked behind iron bars, he went straight into the prison's law library. He didn't just sit there and casually read the materials. He intensely studied them with the absolute, frantic desperation of a drowning man desperately looking for a single breath of air. He spent agonizing months slowly deciphering the complex language of the law. He taught himself exactly how to write intricate, highly complex legal briefs. Soon after, he started actively fighting difficult legal cases not just for himself, but for other lost and forgotten inmates. He eventually got so incredibly good at this specific skill that he formally wrote a legal petition and sent it to the highest, most powerful court in the entire country. Keep in mind that specific court receives many thousands of complex petitions every single year. Out of all of those, they accept only about 1% of them. Against all odds, they accepted his handwritten petition, and he actually won his case. Today, that exact same man is a highly respected, tenured law professor. How exactly does a convicted former criminal completely outlearn highly privileged law students attending elite schools? Leading psychologists have coined a brilliant scientific term for this. They call it desirable difficulty. When the external stakes are incredibly real and immediate, and when failing means experiencing severe, actual pain or terrible loss, your human brain fundamentally changes the core way it processes and permanently stores incoming information. The amygdala, which is the specific part of your brain directly responsible for processing fear and ensuring survival, instantly sends a massive, chemical emergency signal straight into your brain's memory center. It firmly tells your biological brain to securely flag this vital information and to never, ever let you forget it. To replicate this, you must ruthlessly engineer your own daily environment. You must intentionally build what I call the cell. You must actively simulate conditions of sensory deprivation. Next, you must create the survival state. You need to give yourself a terrifying, immovable deadline in order to force your dormant amygdala to finally wake up and pay attention. Finally, you must strictly implement the three-source rule. You are allowed to pick exactly one single book, you pick one specific course, and you choose one single mentor to guide you. But hear me clearly, if you are still chemically addicted to your devices, absolutely none of this powerful information matters. You have to fix the foundation first.